Welcome to Crack It. In this video, we are going to discuss about the frequently asked interview question, which is nothing but N+1 problem in Hibernate. This question is discussed as per one of our subscribers' interest. So if you want to discuss any specific topic, please let us know in the comment section. We'll definitely make a video for it. So in this video, we'll deep dive in what is this N+1 problem and why this is happening and how can we solve it effectively. So please support our channel with likes, shares, comments and subscriptions. Your likes means a lot. What is the N+1 problem in Hibernate? So always when we deploy our what is the N+1 problem in Hibernate? So N+1 problem is a very common performance issue that occurs while fetching data from a relational database like Hibernate. So when we used to fetch a record, suppose say I'm posting a video, so I'm telling it as a post. So I'm posting a video and post is an entity to me. So I'm posting a video and post is an entity to me, and to my specific video there may be a chance that multiple comments may come. So this post and this post comments holds a one to many relationship. So suppose I have a controller and in that controller I'm trying to fetch all these posts. So what will happen, what I'm trying to do, so I'm trying to get all the posts. So by the time we need to fetch all the post comments that is associated to that video as well. So by the time, by default, Hibernate query is a lazy loading. So but we need the post comments to get populated. So by this time what will happen, a performance issue will happen. Let me show it with an example why I'm saying it as a performance issue and why we are saying this as an N+1 problem. So if suppose I have n records in post, the number of queries execute to fetch all the records from the post will be the number of records in the post, which is n plus one query. So I'll show this with an example. Don't get confused. I'm going to show this in an Intellij. Told earlier, we have a controller wherein we are going to return all the posts. So, and I want to show you the entities. So in post I have ID, name and post comments, and this post has one to many relationship with post comments. If we compare this post as our YouTube video, so for one video we can have multiple comments. So one post is associated with many comments, and that's why it's holding one to many relationship. In Hibernate, if suppose there involves a relationship which is one to many or many to one, there comes the N+1 problem. So since we are going to illustrate N+1 problem, we have given one to many relationship to this post and post comments, and I want to show you this entity as well. It has ID and name. So this is my DB wherein I have just one record for this post, and in the post comments, the comments associated with that post is 2, and we have 14 and 15 as its ID, which is associated with the post ID, which is nothing but 4. So we have a post and this specific post has 2 comments. So I'll show you the code. We have a post controller and this post controller is calling the post service, and in the post service I'm calling the default implementation of the JPA repository, which is nothing but to find all the posts. So our code is straightforward, nothing fancy, and from the postman what I'm doing, I'm going to get all the posts from all the posts. So if I give post, I can see that I have one record and that on record with the comments is displaying that. So if we assume that if suppose only one query has ran to fetch all these, no, the answer is no. As we said, this Hibernate have N+1 problem, which is nothing but if suppose I have n records, for our case only one record in post, then the number of queries executed will be N+1, which is 2. So one query will be executed to fetch the name and ID of the post, and one more query will get executed for that specific post ID. Please bring in all the comments that is associated with it. If you see here, 2 queries got executed. In our case, we have just only one row. If suppose we have 2 records, what will happen? One query will be executed to fetch the post, and 2 queries will be executed to fetch the comments for each of these post IDs. I forgot to inform to list the queries. I have mentioned the Spring property JPA shows equal as true, and I have given formats equals true to format these queries. So if you are not able to see the query in the console, just double check whether you have given shows equal as true and formats equal as true. Formats equal is just for formatting. So now what I did is I have added two more sorry, 1 minute, I'll clear this terminal. I have added two more records. So if in the get, if you see, we have ID 1, 12 and 4, and ID 1 with 2 comments and ID 12 with 2 comments. And if you see here, how many queries have run here? One. This first query is to fetch the ID and name of all these 3 posts, and as we know, N+1 queries would have run. So 1, 2 and 3 queries have run. If you see here, 1, 2 and 3 queries. So if we have 3 records, 3 plus 1, 4 queries has run, but we are expecting only 1 query. Why? Because this is a single entity. Post is a single entity, but 4 different queries have run. If we have, suppose we have just now 3 records, and hence N+1, 3 plus 1, 4 queries has been executed. Suppose in the real world, in the production environment, we will have thousands of records. Then how many queries will have run for all those 1000 records? 1000 plus 1 is 1001. Obviously there will be a performance hit. So we need to make sure that if we have a huge number of records, and if we are retrieving an entity which has one to many or many to one relationship in it, we need to make sure that we should not allow this N+1 problem. So for all these, since post is an entity, only 1 query needs to run. Let's see how we can achieve that. There are like multiple ways. Let's see one by one. So now we know what is N+1 problem is. So for n records, N+1 query will get executed. That is N+1 problem. So why is this N+1 problem occurs? It's mainly due to the default lazy loading mechanism of the ORM frameworks. So mainly in Hibernate that we are discussing now, even it's the same issue in Django, ORM Python as well. Also because of lazy loading, we do have benefits, because if that entity is not the related entities are not fetched from the DB until they are explicitly accessed. If I'm not accessing it, then there's no need for me to fetch it from the database. Yes, that's true, that will save a lot of time, but even then, even if it is making me to save unnecessary DB queries, but it also leads to this N+1 problem if it is not managed properly. So what can we do? If suppose I have an entity, just now we saw we have post, and only for the post comments, if I want to fetch those records, if that specific entity is accessed, what do I need to do? What are the solution? Yes, we still can solve the N+1 problem. One is using the join fetch, and the other is using the entity graphs. In entity graphs, again, there will be we can solve it using named entity graph or ad hoc entity graph. We'll see this one by one. Let's first of all see what join fetch is. Join fetch is nothing but we are going to add this join fetch to our query, and that will work like a magic. JPA will perform that. Spring JPA will help us in if you see here, it's a JPQL query. So Spring JPA has a feature called join fetch, and this join fetch feature will works like a magic, which will make like all, just now in our example we saw 3 records, 3 plus 1, 4 records have been executed, but if we add this join fetch, only 1 query will get executed. Let's now switch to the Intellij and see how this has been performed. So in our example, we are using Spring JPA's default find all method. So for now, what are we going to do? Instead of using the Spring defaults find method, we are going to write our own query, and in that query, I am going to use this keyword join fetch. So if you see here, I have already written, this is not a fancy query. So select star from the table name, which is post, and I'm going to give join fetch p dot post comments. Join this post table with the post comments table and fetch what and all is there in that post comments. That is this command internally. So what are we doing? We are joining this post table and post comments table and fetching what is there in that post comment table. So this is Spring's JPA alternative for find all, with including one more entity which has the many to one relationship, which is nothing but post comments in our example. So I want to explain one more thing here. So I'll open the entity. So in post, in our example for now, we have only post comments as one to many relationship. Suppose I, for example, I'm copy pasting this and I'm giving it as likes, and I'm going to give this table as, suppose say I have one more table called like, and that is also having one to many relationship. But for my example, I want to fetch only this post comments always whenever I want to access this post. So if like this kind of scenarios, what will help? This join fetch will help. So by default, I didn't provide here. If you see here, I didn't provide any fetch type. So why didn't I provide? Because by default, Hibernate is lazy fetch. I can mention eager fetch here, but that eager fetch is not the viable solution. Why? We cannot do eager fetch in all scenarios. So what we are doing? We are going with Spring JPA's join fetch. What is this Spring JPA join fetch? It's very simple and straightforward. Is nothing but we are going to write a query using an add query annotation, and that query is nothing but joining these two tables and fetching what is present in p dot post comments. It's straightforward. Now I'll stop the application started and let's see what happens when we access it using the Postman. So I've restarted the application and I have inserted two records. I'll call the get and you can see that we have just two records. Why I'm since I have in memory database, I've restarted my application and it went off. So I have added these two records. So I have two records and both records have two comments. And if you see and comment, check the console here, you can see that only one query has been executed for these two records. Previously, in the previous case, before we add fetch join, it will have N+1 problem, which is nothing but 2 + 1, 3 queries would have been executed by. But now with this join fetch approach, which is nothing but this join fetch approach, we have only one query executed, and in the query, if you check, it's nothing but like listing all this from the tables, join that table with post comments table. So we have only one query executed and this resolves our N+1 problem. So this is one of the ways in which we can we resolve the N+1 problem, which is nothing but providing join fetch to our JPA query. We can instead of writing JPA query, we can write a native SQL query as well. Not a problem. Select star from post and we can use the same join fetch keyword. That's not an issue either with the JPA query or with the SQL query. This join fetch will work. Next, the second approach is entity graphs. So with the entity graphs, what we are doing is, I'll just comment this and I'll uncomment this line and then I'll explain what I'm trying to say. So if you see here, we are adding an entity graph, and in that entity graph annotation, what I am providing? I'm providing this attribute paths. So in the entity graph annotation, you can see that we have something called this entity graph type, which is nothing but load and fetch type. And what is the default type for it? Fetch. So I didn't mention in here, I didn't mention any fetch type. So it will take the default type, which is nothing but fetch. So it will fetch, what it will fetch? It will fetch the attribute that I have provided here. This is my attribute path. Inside my post, I have some attribute called post comments, and you need to fetch that post comment while executing your query. That is what I am mentioning here. So what I am mentioning here, so I'm providing the entity graph annotation, and in that entity graph annotation, I'm providing the path from which it needs to fetch the value. So even in this case, what will happen? It will execute only one query. Let's see. I'll stop the application and I'll show you through the Postman. Restarted my application and let's see, and I'm hitting the get query, and in the console, let's see what happened. How many queries have executed? Yes, only one query has been executed, and you can see that the same query left joining the table post and the post comments and retrieving all the elements from the post and the post comments. So even now this n+1 problem has been solved. So for the n+1 problem we have two solutions. One is like uh, uh, giving the entity graph, providing entity graph solution, and the other is join fit solution. For the entity graph, instead of, if you don't want to use this annotation, previously they used to follow something called as creating this entity graph from the entity manager. Like, we, it's very best if we use this at entity graph annotation, but if you don't want to use this annotation, then you need to create a implementation for your repository, and you need to get this entity manager using this at persistence context annotation, and you have to write the same query here, which is nothing but select p from post p. And in this, what do you need to load, which what do you need to load in the load graph? You need to load this entity graph. What is this entity graph? This entity graph is nothing but this entity graph has a subgraph added in it, and which is nothing but this post comments. So in this way you need to write. If you are not going to use at entity graph annotation, then you need to create a repository implementation class for your repository, and in that you need to get this at persistence context. You have to use this at persistent context annotation. You need to fetch this entity manager class, and in this entity manager, what do you need to write? What do you need to write in your method? From the entity manager graph, you need to create an entity graph for this parent table, and in this parent table entity graph, you need to add a subgraph, which is nothing but the post comments in our example, and you need to use this entity graph in this set hint method, and you have to provide the hint name, which is nothing but java x.persistence.load graph, and in that you have to provide the entity graph that you created, and that entity graph should have the all the subgraphs that you want to, and you need to straight away give get results set. This will work exactly same as this at entity graph annotation. So it's always easy to use annotations rather than you write code. I prefer always using annotations, and it's completely your call to write which one you want. So both the ways that we just now see, which is nothing but join, fetch, and using the entity graphs, is through JPA. There's one more way in which we can solve the same issue, which is nothing but the Hibernate query language. Here we in our example we are using JPA query language, but we can solve this same Hibernate n+1 problem using the Hibernate query language as well, which is nothing but HQL. So even in the Hibernate, we have two approaches. One is through join fetch, and the other is using the criterias. So with the join fetch, it's very similar to that of the Spring JPA join fetch. We are going to use the same keyword join fetch in our Hibernate query. Instead of we using it in a JPA query, we are going to just use it in the Hibernate query. Just the syntax will get different. So what will we write? From post p join fetch. So join fetch to which entity? Which is nothing but this p dot post comments entity. So it is a straightforward query. It's very similar to that of a JPA. There's some second approach, which is nothing but using criterias. So using criteria, what we are going to do, as we know, Hibernate supports criteria query language. Also we can add projections if we want. So in the criteria query language, what is the syntax that we are going to use? Second approach is like here in JPA we have entity graph approach, but here it's criteria. So in the criteria, what I'm doing, so session dot create criteria of post. I'm creating a criteria for my post entity, and in that post entity I'm setting a fetch mode as eager for only this post comments. So only while executing that specific query, this post comments will get eager fetched. For rest of all the times, this will be lazy fetch. So we can write we can customize our query in Hibernate using criteria query language as well. So through Hibernate, again there are two approaches, one using join fetch and one using the criteria. So if you want to explain me this join fetch and using criteria in Hibernate as well in a like as a demo in Intellij, please let me know in the comment section. I'll do. Also, I request you all to like the video and comment if you like the content. Please do share it to your friends who and all is preparing for the interviews. So your comments are valuable, your likes are valuable. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe if you like the content. So guys, thanks for watching Crack It. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe for updates. If you want any specific topics, questions, or areas to explore further, please feel free to leave a comment. We are here to help and discuss. Your input means a lot, so please don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for watching.